My father has a wall covered with photographs of people he calls family. Friends. Donors. Important people. People who helped his career. People who helped his image. There is one photo that will never be on that wall. My wedding photo. That was not an accident. My father made sure of it. He is a United States Senator. A man who spends every day talking about family values, loyalty, and honor. But on the day I got married, he chose a fundraiser instead. He didn't even pretend he had another choice. My mother sent a message a few hours before the ceremony. Just one sentence. Sorry we can't attend. Nothing else. No love. No congratulations. No explanation. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I looked at Carter. My husband. The man they hated before they even knew him. He was standing in his work coveralls with a small smile on his face. Grease still stained his hands. He looked tired. Honest. Real. I lifted my phone and took a picture. Then I sent it to my parents. I didn't write anything. Just the photo. After that, I put my phone down and waited. The first call came 40 minutes later. Then another. Then another. They kept calling. Neither of them knew that the man standing in that photograph had spent 6 quiet years building something powerful. Something my father had spent his entire career trying to bury. My name is Amelia Vance. I am 34 years old. I served 16 years in uniform. And I am the daughter my father wishes he could erase from his perfect story. This is the story of a wedding. A photograph. And how one powerful man lost everything because he underestimated the wrong people. The first time my father met Carter happened at our family home in Maryland. The house looked like something from a magazine. Perfect lawn. Perfect furniture. Perfect smiles. And that wall. The wall covered in photographs. Carter was nervous. Not because of my father. Because he wanted to make a good impression. Before we arrived, he washed his hands twice. Still, a tiny line of grease remained near one thumbnail. My father found it almost immediately. They shook hands. Then my father glanced at his own palm afterward. The message was clear. My mother served expensive wine. The kind that cost more than Carter paid in rent every month. Then the questions started. What do you do for work? Where did you study? Do you follow politics? Carter answered every question honestly. No bragging. No excuses. No shame. That seemed to bother my father even more. Finally my father set down his glass. A small smile appeared on his face. The kind of smile he always wore before saying something cruel. Then he spoke. No, Vance marries a mechanic. He said it lightly. Like it was a joke. Like he was commenting on the weather. My mother stared at her plate. She didn't defend me. She never did. For years I had made excuses for her silence. Not this time. Under the table, I reached for Carter's hand. I held it tightly. My father thought he had won. He thought he had embarrassed us. What he didn't know was that the same hands he mocked every day were building technology that could change an entire industry. The same mechanic he looked down on was quietly solving problems that billion-dollar companies couldn't solve. So I smiled. And I let my father believe he was the smartest man in the room. 3 days later, Preston Vale called me. My father's chief of staff. A man who could sound polite while threatening your future. He started with compliments. Then concern. Then advice. The usual order. He suggested postponing the wedding. Just until after the election. He used the word optics several times. He said my father loved me. He said my father only wanted what was best. Then he made the real offer. Money. Not directly. People like Preston never say things directly. He simply explained how much easier life could be if Carter and I stayed out of public view for a while. A larger apartment. Financial support. Opportunities. All we had to do was disappear. I asked one question. Is this coming from you or my father? The silence answered for him. I told him no. The wedding was happening. Nothing was changing. His voice became colder. You may regret this. After the call ended, I sat quietly. At the time, I thought he was threatening me. Later I realized something else. He was scared. People only offer bribes when they are afraid of what happens if you refuse. A week before the wedding, my mother came to visit. She had never been to our apartment before. The place wasn't fancy. Second-hand furniture. Small kitchen. Old shelves. But it was ours. She walked through it like someone inspecting damage after a storm. Looking for flaws. Looking for proof she was right. I made tea. She never touched it. Instead, she stared at a photo of Carter and me at a county fair. Then she finally spoke. Your impulsive decision will ruin us. Not you. Us. That single word stayed with me. Us. I couldn't remember the last time she used that word to include me in something good. I asked what exactly would be ruined. She wouldn't answer. She simply grabbed her purse, put on her coat, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she stopped. I hope you know what you're doing. I looked her directly in the eyes. I'm marrying someone who has never made me feel like a problem. For a second she flinched. Only for a second. Then it was gone. She left without another word. At the time, I thought she was being dramatic. Later I would learn the truth. She wasn't warning me. She was confessing something. Our wedding took place in a community hall. Nothing fancy. Folding chairs. Borrowed decorations. Simple flowers. But it was beautiful. Carter's coworkers came. My military friends sent gifts. Everyone who mattered showed up. Except my parents. 2 chairs sat empty in the front row. One labeled Mom. One labeled Dad. I almost removed the cards. I didn't. Some absences deserve to be seen. The empty chairs hurt. Every time I looked at them, they hurt. Then something happened. Near the end of the ceremony, I looked toward the back. An older man stood there alone. Weathered face. Simple jacket. Hat in his hands. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I knew that face. Even after 26 years. My Uncle Jake. My father's younger brother. The brother nobody talked about. The brother my family had erased. He looked like my father. Except kinder. Sadder. Human. He didn't come forward. He simply nodded at me. Then nodded at Carter. And Carter nodded back. Like they already knew each other. The moment hit me harder than the wedding vows. Why did my husband know my missing uncle? What connection existed between them? I had no answers. But suddenly the empty chairs mattered a little less. Because someone else had chosen to show up. Someone who had every reason not to. 2 days after the wedding, I visited Carter's workplace. I expected a garage. Instead, I found a small brick building in Reston. Inside were engineers. Machines. Prototype batteries. Advanced technology. People treated Carter like he was the smartest person in the room. My husband walked through the building proudly. Showing me everything. Then I saw him. Uncle Jake. Standing beside one of the machines. Working with the team. Working with Carter. My mind spun. The mechanic. The exile. Together. Building something. I took out my phone. Without thinking, I snapped a picture. Carter stood in front of the company sign. Grease on his hands. Jake beside him. The company name visible behind them. I sent the photo to my parents. Underneath it, I wrote. He missed the wedding. He was busy. Then I forgot about it. At least for a few hours. By evening my phone looked like it was exploding. 7 missed calls from my father. 3 from my mother. 1 message from Preston. Call your father. I stared at the screen. Confused. What was hidden inside that photo? Why were they panicking? I called my father. He answered instantly. The confidence was gone from his voice. The man who mocked Carter was suddenly nervous. Very nervous. He didn't ask about the wedding. Didn't apologize. Didn't ask if I was happy. Instead, he demanded to know where the picture had been taken. I told him. Then he asked who the man beside Carter was. Even though he already knew. Jake, I said. Silence. Complete silence. Then another question. What company is that? My stomach tightened. Why did he care? Why was he asking about ownership? About business? About investments? A normal father would ask about his daughter's husband. My father was asking about money. Exposure. Risk. Fear. I slowly told him the company name. Another silence. Then he said something strange. You have no idea what you've stepped into. And he hung up. Just like that. I stood in the parking lot holding my phone. The evening air felt colder. Whatever frightened my father wasn't me. It wasn't my marriage. It wasn't Carter. It was something much older. Something buried. Something connected to Jake. Weeks later, I was working at my army job. Reviewing contracts. Reading paperwork. The boring kind of work most people never notice. But details matter. Details reveal patterns. And patterns reveal lies. While reviewing documents, I found something odd. A small company had been eliminated from a government program. Officially, they were marked non-responsive. But the scores didn't match. The company had strong ratings. Stronger than some companies that advanced. It felt wrong. I wrote the file number on a sticky note. Then I forgot about it. For 9 days. 9 ordinary days. Until one morning I looked at the note again. And froze. The company name. It was the same name from the photograph. The same company Carter and Jake owned. The same company my father panicked about. I sat perfectly still. 2 separate mysteries suddenly became one. My husband's company had been pushed out of a federal competition. My father had reacted with fear the moment he saw their photograph. And my instincts told me something important. This wasn't a coincidence. Something much bigger was hiding underneath it all. And I was about to find out what it was. For a long time, I sat in my kitchen staring at that company name. The same company from Carter's photograph. The same company my father had reacted to with fear. The same company that had been pushed out of a federal program under suspicious circumstances. I felt something cold settle inside me. My father had never cared about my happiness. He had never cared about my wedding. But one photograph had shaken him so badly that he couldn't stop calling. That meant one thing. The truth was bigger than I imagined. That weekend, Carter finally told me everything. We sat together on our old couch. 2 cups of coffee rested on the table between us. Neither of us touched them. Carter looked nervous. Not because he had done anything wrong. Because he knew what he was about to tell me would change everything. 6 years earlier, he had met an older engineer. A brilliant man. A quiet man. A man carrying years of experience and pain. That man was Jake. My uncle. Together they spent weekends building something new. Testing ideas. Failing. Trying again. Working late into the night. Little by little they created a battery technology that was safer, cheaper, and more powerful than anything larger companies could produce. Eventually they started their own company. Filed patents. Built prototypes. Hired engineers. And finally entered a federal competition that could change their future. Then they were suddenly pushed aside. Their scores were excellent. But somehow they lost anyway. I listened carefully. Every piece fit another piece. Like a puzzle finally coming together. Then Carter admitted something else. He had known Jake was related to my father. Not at first. But after we became engaged. The moment he heard the name Vance. He realized who Jake's brother was. I didn't tell you because I didn't want our marriage to become about their feud, he said quietly. I understood. And honestly, I was grateful. My whole life had already been about my father's battles. Carter never wanted that. He only wanted to build something meaningful. That was exactly what my father couldn't understand. People like my father believe everyone wants power. Carter didn't. He wanted purpose. Monday morning I looked again at the government records. This time I searched deeper. Committee assignments. Oversight authority. Agency connections. The answers made my stomach twist. My father sat on the oversight committee connected to the very program that rejected Carter's company. Officially, senators don't score proposals. Officially, they don't choose winners. But influence doesn't always leave fingerprints. Sometimes it leaves pressure. Quiet pressure. A phone call. A suggestion. A favor. I knew how government systems worked. I also knew what abuse looked like. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Then the reporter appeared. Her name was Nora Keene. She investigated corruption and political influence. One afternoon she left me a voicemail. She was researching a defense contractor called Howaren Dynamics. A company that seemed to win contracts over and over again. A company connected to major donors. A company connected to my father's committee. And somehow she had discovered my connection to Carter's company. She wanted to talk. I sat staring at that voicemail for hours. Part of me wanted revenge. Real revenge. The kind everyone dreams about. I imagined exposing everything. Watching my father answer questions. Watching the wall of lies collapse. It would have felt amazing. But something stopped me. Years in uniform had taught me patience. The obvious move is often the wrong move. So I didn't call her. Not yet. Instead, I visited Jake. His workshop sat outside Winchester. Simple. Quiet. Comfortable. The place smelled like metal and coffee. Jake listened while I explained everything. Then he said something I never forgot. Don't fight Richard where he's strongest. That single sentence changed everything. Because he was right. My father had spent his life controlling public conversations. He knew how to handle cameras. Reporters. Debates. Public attacks. He lived there. If I fought him in public, I would be walking into his arena. I needed another path. A better path. A quieter path. A few days later my father invited me to his house. He called it reconciliation. I called it strategy. Still, I went. When I arrived, he acted warmer than he had in years. He poured expensive scotch. Complimented my military service. Told me he was proud of me. Every word felt rehearsed. Then came the real reason for the meeting. He started asking questions about Carter's company. Questions about federal contracts. Questions about business risks. Questions disguised as concern. Then he slipped. Just a little. He reminded me that I had a military career. He reminded me that appearances mattered. He reminded me that mistakes could damage reputations. There it was. A threat. Wrapped in fatherly advice. I smiled politely. Finished the conversation. And left. But something important happened that day. For the first time, I realized my father was afraid. Truly afraid. Powerful people only threaten others when they feel threatened themselves. A week later I visited Jake again. This time he brought out an old tin box. The kind families use to store Christmas cookies. But there were no cookies inside. Only secrets. 26 years of secrets. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was an old notebook. Technical sketches. Engineering notes. Battery designs. All written by Jake. Dated more than 25 years earlier. My eyes widened. The designs looked familiar. Very familiar. They were early versions of the same technology now being built by Carter's company. Jake had created it first. Long before anyone knew his name. Long before my father became famous. Then I found legal papers. Patent assignments. Business agreements. Financial records. And finally I saw it. The document that explained everything. Years ago Jake had signed his invention into a company. That company later sold for a huge amount of money. The profits helped launch my father's political career. The money that built the Vance family image. The money that funded campaigns. The money that built the mansion. All of it traced back to Jake's work. Jake received almost nothing. My father received everything. Worse still. The documents showed my father kept a hidden financial interest connected to that technology. For decades. Jake watched my face as I understood. Then he spoke softly. Richard doesn't bury inventions. He buries the people who make them. The room became silent. Suddenly my mother's warning made sense. Your decision will ruin us. She wasn't worried about Carter. She wasn't worried about class or status. She was terrified of the truth. The entire family reputation rested on a lie. And she knew it. That night I barely slept. I studied every document. Every record. Every date. Every signature. The more I read, the worse it became. If my father had hidden financial interests from public disclosures, that wasn't just unethical. It was potentially illegal. And if he influenced a federal program while protecting those interests? The consequences could be devastating. The next morning I almost called Nora. Almost. I even started writing a statement. A long statement. A powerful statement. I described the wedding. The empty chairs. The stolen invention. The corruption. The betrayal. It felt good. Too good. Then my training saved me. Before acting, I checked the regulations governing military personnel. And suddenly I understood the trap. I was active duty military. My father was a sitting senator and political candidate. If I publicly attacked him, it could be interpreted as political activity. That could destroy my career. Worse. It could allow him to shift attention away from his actions and onto mine. The story would become about a soldier attacking a politician. Not about corruption. Not about theft. Not about the truth. For the first time, I saw exactly what my father expected me to do. He wanted me angry. He wanted me loud. He wanted me reckless. Because that was the only way he could win. The next day I called a trusted military lawyer. Without naming names, I explained the situation. Her answer was immediate. If you go public under your name, you could lose everything. That settled it. No public attack. No interviews. No speeches. No revenge headlines. I needed a different strategy. A smarter strategy. A legal strategy. I finally called Nora back. But I never gave her a story. I gave her directions. Public documents. Financial disclosures. Contract records. Government filings. Everything she needed already existed. She only had to connect the dots. Then I stepped aside. Meanwhile, Carter and Jake filed a formal protest regarding the federal competition. A completely legal process. One that forced agencies to explain their decisions. One that opened records for review. One that exposed hidden pressure. The machine started moving. Slowly. Quietly. Relentlessly. Weeks passed. Then panic began spreading. Preston called again. His voice sounded strained. Nervous. He accused me of encouraging the protest. I calmly reminded him that companies have legal rights. Nothing more. Then he made another mistake. He hinted that questions could be raised about my conduct. Another threat. Another trap. This time I was ready. I simply told him I documented every conversation. Silence filled the line. Then he hung up. The threats stopped after that. Because they finally understood something. I wasn't fighting emotionally anymore. I was fighting correctly. The reckoning arrived at my father's annual charity gala. Hundreds of guests. Politicians. Donors. Reporters. Business leaders. Everyone gathered to celebrate him. They even planned to give him an award. Family Values Champion. The irony was unbelievable. I attended. Not to speak. Not to confront anyone. Only to watch. The ballroom sparkled. Crystal glasses. Expensive suits. Perfect smiles. My father worked the room like always. Confident. Charming. Untouchable. Or so he thought. Then the phones started lighting up. One by one. Guests checking messages. Whispering. Reading. Looking confused. Then shocked. Nora's article had been published. The financial disclosures. The hidden interests. The missing information. Everything laid out carefully. At the same time, news spread that the protest investigation was moving forward. Agency records were being reviewed. Questions were multiplying. My father checked his phone. And instantly went pale. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Then something even more powerful happened. The ballroom doors opened. And Jake walked in. Simple jacket. Hat in his hands. Exactly like my wedding day. He didn't shout. Didn't accuse. Didn't perform. He simply stood there. Visible. That alone shattered 26 years of lies. My father stared at him. Frozen. Because Jake was supposed to stay erased forever. Instead, he was standing in plain sight. Alive. Present. Impossible to ignore. The room shifted. Everything changed. A little later my father cornered me in a service hallway. The mask finally broke. He screamed. Accused. Blamed. Raged. He called me a traitor. Said I destroyed the family. Said I ruined everything he built. I listened quietly. For years I dreamed about yelling back. But now? I didn't need to. The fight was already over. When he finally ran out of words, I spoke. Calmly. Softly. Mom was right. He stared at me. Confused. One impulsive decision ruined this family. You made it when I was 8. His face changed. Then I delivered the final truth. You told me no Vance marries a mechanic. I paused. You should have worried about the inventor. The words hit harder than any scream. Because they were true. Jake the inventor. Carter the inventor. Two men my father underestimated. Two men who built something real. Something he couldn't steal. Something he couldn't bury. The truth. For the first time in his life, my father had nothing left to say. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need him to. I walked away. The award ceremony collapsed. Guests left. Donors disappeared. The camera stopped celebrating. By morning the story was everywhere. Investigations expanded. The agency records exposed problems. The ethics inquiry moved forward. Questions multiplied faster than answers. How aerodynamics abandoned my father. Political allies vanished. Support disappeared. The empire cracked. Months later my father announced he would not seek re-election. Officially, he wanted to focus on family. I laughed when I heard it. Family. The word he never understood. Carter and Jake eventually received the fair evaluation they deserved. Their technology succeeded. Their company grew. New engineers joined. New opportunities arrived. Most importantly, Jake finally received recognition for his invention. His name appeared where it always belonged. My mother and I never truly repaired our relationship. Some wounds are too old. Too deep. I don't hate her. But I stopped waiting for her to become someone different. And me? I stayed in uniform. Kept doing my job. Kept reading paperwork. Kept finding patterns. Because in the end, that simple skill changed everything. I learned that corruption often hides in plain sight. I learned that truth doesn't always need a microphone. And I learned something else. Family isn't the people who appear in perfect photographs. Family isn't reputation. Family isn't status. Family is the people who quietly show up when nobody else does. The people who sit in the back row. The people who stay. My father had a ballroom full of supporters. None of them remained. I had a mechanic. And an inventor. And they were enough. More than enough. They were my real family. And in the end, they were everything. This completes the story in a smooth, emotional YouTube narration style and finishes the entire plot with a satisfying ending.